Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I am so excited today to have the woman behind One Wanderful Life. Yes, I hope I said it. One Wanderful. That's a mouthful too. I was like, not wonderful, it's wonderful. I have Sara Iannacone here with me, and I am so excited to dive into her world, how she created her business, and what she's doing with it today. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Danielle. I really appreciate it. And good job with the wonderful. It is a mouthful. I started it and I was like, are people going to get this? But I was like, you know what? I'm just
I
going for
like
it
it.
because it does like fit what I am trying to
Yes.
do. So
Thanks.
essentially, the whole brand and like who I am is I'm
Yeah.
trying to help people experience the fullness and joy of life through traveling and entrepreneurship. So to me, like wandering wonderful, that just
Yes.
seemed pretty fitting.
Yes.
So I am a wife, a dog mom, a traveler, and I guess the reason why I'm here today is I'm also a female entrepreneur. So I have a copywriting business, and One Wonderful Life is my coaching business slash travel blog, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Went from passion project to an actual business, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Yeah. You took the passion project, you got out of the corporate world and whatever you were doing beforehand and truly became working for yourself on what I mean, the true word of passion project. You literally turned into something that you were really wanting to do.
Yeah.
Which is
So my my journey is a little windy. This is not the first business that I started. So it was just sort of I don't know how much I've shared in the past, but I was an event planner, a corporate event planner for
okay.
like 10 years in
Yeah.
like various industries.
Yeah.
My career was very much rooted in events and marketing. I went to school for tourism and hospitality, thinking that I would end up in the travel industry, but just the way things worked out, I ended up in hotels, which then led to events. So very messy, was
Yes.
not meant for me at all. But I was just like, okay, this is 2008 or 2012. God, I don't even know when I graduated. I need a job. So, like, where am I going to get one? And
Yeah.
events was the easiest thing to find a job in at that point. So, I did that for a very long time. And it took me a very long time to figure out why I was so miserable. And it was just that I really hated events. So, the pandemic happened, and I was like, okay, well, events are not going so hot right now. How can I pivot and do something that I actually enjoy and make money? Because I definitely, the only thing I knew at that point, I left my 9 to 5 to be a contractor in the event space before the pandemic.
Yep.
And I was like, "Ooh, that was not a great move," but like, who was I? Like, I didn't know that
Yep.
that was going to happen. So I figured out that the underlying factor of all of my jobs that wasn't with events was copywriting and
Yeah.
marketing, things like that. And I had one freelance client that a friend had like asked me if I wanted to help with. So I was like, all right, let me see if I can do this full time. So I actually started a copywriting business first, and I still have that business. It's very much still part of my life and who I am and what I
Yeah.
do. And I love my clients now. And it's helped me not go back to a 9 to 5. And it
Yeah.
also helped me be able to start One Wonderful Life because I built that up to a point where I'm making much more than I was at my 9 to 5. So now this,
Yeah.
with a lot less time invested. So that was sort of what allowed me to start One Wonderful Life and talk about my traveling and entrepreneurship and all of that good stuff.
One of the things that stood out was a statement that you had made that you have never like yes you're in events but you were kind of you were in and out of doing a bunch of different things when like why did something just not hook you and then this one wonderful life is what hooked you like was that the case?
Yeah, so I think for literally all of my life, of like, when you go to school, you're taught like this is what you do.
Yeah.
Like you go to school, you decide what college you want to, you get a job, you try and climb the ladder. That's just what you do.
Yeah.
And even though my dad's an entrepreneur, I like for some reason just didn't see that as an option for me. I was like, I don't want to be an accountant. He's an accountant. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want that
Yeah.
business. So I didn't even think about looking into entrepreneurship in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So I went to school. I majored in tourism and hospitality management. I took the first job I could get because I was like, well, I need to pay my bills somehow. So what am I going to do here? Nobody ever teaches you how to like negotiate your salary, figure out if a job is a good fit for you, figure out what you want out of a job.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yep.
just you're sort of taught that it's sort of like a gift that somebody's going to be
Yeah.
hiring you and like you're working for them. And, it's just that was the path that I followed because I thought that was the only path.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for a decade, literally, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, wow, I did this for 11 years. Like, how awful is that? So I was just jumping from job to job. And like at that point, job hopping was still something that people talked about a lot. My mom, and, she was like, maybe you should try and like stay a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm like, but why? Like, I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like my boss. Like, this is miserable.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
not going to stay just because I don't want to be seen
Right.
as a job hopper.
Right.
So I think that was the first thing that I was like, you know what? Screw what people like tell me I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm not going to stay in something that makes me miserable. Um, the issue was every job made me miserable in some way, shape, or form. So, it was always something. It was the work, it was the boss, it was the commute, it was something.
Yeah.
And then I met up with a friend in Spain at one point, and he had left his job to become a contractor in the events world. So he did not have a boss anymore. He had his own business. And I was like, shoot, like, why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I was like, this is really scary because I have no idea what I'm doing, like
Yeah.
absolutely no clue.
Yeah.
And this could actually really screw up my career even more if I fail.
Yeah.
But I've tried all of these things, so why shouldn't I try this?
Yeah.
So I talked to my husband. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I am going to go. I am going to try and start a business. We're going to see what happens. Essentially, for the next 6 months after I decided I was doing that, I saved money and just like pocketed everything I could because I was like, I'm going to start this. I'm not going to have any
Yeah.
money. How can I make this happen?
Yeah.
So he was sort of my mentor for that. He got me on board and I was like super excited about it. Um, and then the pandemic happened. So I like took the risk and I was like so ready to be in entrepreneurship.
Yep.
And then the pandemic was just like, no, just kidding. You're not doing this.
Yeah.
Because, I could have stuck it out. I could have kept
Yeah.
trying to sell events, but like really what good was that going to do me?
Right.
It was causing more stress and anxiety and like everyone was canceling events, not booking events.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? This is just not worth it. Like it's
Yeah.
not, it might work long term, but what am I doing right now?
Yeah.
Because I had quit my job. So I wasn't getting government like benefits or anything
Right.
like that. Like
Right.
other people were. Like I
Yes.
had nothing. So I was like, okay, the only thing I know is that I am not going back to a 9 to 5. Like I had like 2 or 3 months of like pure freedom at that point that I was like, oh, like it feels good to make money on my own. Like
Yeah.
feels good to not answer to anybody. So I was like, you know what? I need to try something. So I got on Upwork and I put my copywriting skills out into the world that I had literally no idea how to be a copywriter, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? The one thing that I know I've done at least a little bit, and I have one client is writing. So let me see how I can turn this into a
Yes.
business.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of clients on Upwork, and then it just sort of like spiraled from there. I got referrals, people would find my website.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it ended up being really great. And then that
Okay.
led to
And I resonate so much with you when you were talking about, we go to school, we're raised to go to school, get our piece of paper, and do all these things. Well, now you're looking back and you're like, God, I wish I would have learned in high school instead of home ec or geometry. And now that I'm in business, I don't need that at all. But you're sitting here,
Mhm.
I'm like, I wish someone would have taught me how to balance a checkbook or to do
Yeah.
all of these things that we need in our functional everyday life. I was also raised that you go to school, go to college, you get your piece of paper, you go
Yeah.
and do whatever you need to do. My dad was a very much that's how he was raised, and that carried through to us. He didn't care what we went and did, but he did care that we went and got our piece of paper
Yep.
so we
That's how my
could
parents were
go
too.
so
Yeah.
we could go do it. But it
Yep.
was that generation that generation growing up that's what was expected, and though so I feel
Exactly.
like that carried on to us as well.
Yeah. I think it's also a lot about security. Like for them, that's a perceived security, like um the security is that big company that's going to pay you a job and give you a place to be every day, and you can show up and do your work and grow with them and like stay there for your entire life, and then you'll have a pension. But like pensions don't really exist anymore, like it's super rare. So I think that in terms of security, like you can build your own security, and that's not something that people really talk about super often. So I think that entrepreneurship is actually a better way to create security, but people don't talk about that, because it's just, you can make as much money as you want to make, like your only cap is your time and how you hire people and what you're able to grow and build. But there isn't like, I'm going to show up today, I'm going to sit here for 8 hours, and then I'm going to get paid for that. So there is like a give and a take on that, in terms of like, you actually have to
Yeah.
work
Yep.
like
Yep.
hard to make money, but you will make way
Absolutely.
more money, and nobody's going to fire you. And if a client fires you, so what? You probably didn't need them anyway, and you can go get
Right.
more.
Right.
So it's just a different conversation, a different viewpoint, I think.
It is. And while we're on it, I just wanted to hit from your perspective and your opinion some of the advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons of what it is. You've been in both seats. What is it like working for somebody else, but then at the same time, being your own boss, being an entrepreneur? Where do you see the advantages and disadvantages of both?
Totally. So I think in terms of advantages of a 9 to 5, like it does give you a set paycheck. Like what you're getting out of every day, every week. Like what your tasks are. Like you don't really have to think about what you're doing now, so unless you're like in management or executive level or something like that. But for me, I was very much like lower level and like just right before management, maybe. So it was a lot of order taking and a lot of, this is just what you're doing and we'll pay you for it. And then you can go home and, for me, I didn't go home and turn it off. And that was another thing that wasn't great for me. But you're just like, you know what to expect, you know what you're getting out of it. And that's like, it is what it is. Um, but in terms of entrepreneurship, I think that there's a lot more opportunity, but it's a lot harder in a lot of like different ways. Like you have to, I think my dad was actually the one that said this, like you have to go out and find your paycheck. Like you are putting yourself out there. You have to figure out where the money is coming from. And I don't have a team yet, so I'm only worried about paying myself, which is great. But when you grow, you have to worry about like paying other people's salaries. And it's just like a different set of anxieties and pressures, I guess. But for me, that the freedom outweighs that like tenfold. So I I was trying to calculate yesterday how many days off I've actually taken this year, and it's very, I don't do this all the time, but I think I've taken like 30 something days off, like Monday through Friday days off in the past, like since December or January. So I've taken 3 international vacations, and like I don't work when I go on these trips. Like I've built my business to a point that people know when I'm leaving, and they know that I'm going to get my work done, and I'm going to do it either before or after, and they know when they need to get me things before I leave. So I've set up systems and processes in my business and with my clients that they know when I am leaving. So like I think a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses right now are like, oh, you can build it and take it with you, but like I don't want to do that. I want to go on vacation. So that is something that with entrepreneurship I didn't realize that I could do, because I think people hustle so hard that they sort of forget to reap the benefits of it. So for me, like that freedom is the biggest benefit. And it is like, it's as simple as, the doctor scheduling a doctor's appointment. Like, I don't have to ask anybody if I can leave at 10 a.m. to go to the doctor. And for me, like a lot of my friends have just had kids. So like they're dealing with juggling families and a boss and a team and like all of these things that just aren't super conducive to women in the workplace. And I think in the entrepreneurial world, like I have like people on my calls will like breastfeed, like they'll bring their kids to the call. So like for me as a woman in business, like I think that entrepreneurship is just a lot more, it's more of a safe space for women in the business world. And that I think those are the benefits, the freedom and the fact that I think women are creating this space that's just really special. And you can be a woman that has it all. So I think that that's sort of like the differences.
Absolutely. I it's one of the things, even though I do take it with me, one of the things that I've appreciated about remote work is that my job, I was able to go live at the beach for the
I
summer for
love that.
3 months. And
Yeah.
it was so nice because it was just me. People came in and out. They were able to visit and things like that. But it was so nice because I was still able at lunch, if I didn't have anything the rest of the day, I could go to the beach. I could go do whatever I needed to
100%.
do
Yep.
because in a sense I was working from my home. And so
Yeah.
I found I really appreciate remote work that way.
Huge. It's just like it's a totally different lifestyle. Like I have one other friend who is an entrepreneur. So during the summer, we go to the beach on like Wednesday mornings every week. And that's just like something that we can do because we don't have a boss that's expecting us to go sit at a desk, you know? And it is like for people that have remote, flexible work, that's awesome. That's huge. And I think that maybe if I had tried that, it would have been interesting to me for sure.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in entrepreneurship, I just don't see myself going back to a 9 to 5, I guess. But if I
Yeah.
did, it would have to be remote and it would have to be like flexible. One of the other things with this is that my husband, just talking about like working in other places,
Yeah.
my husband and I's like 5 to 10 year goal is to buy a second house in Spain. So like I'm able to have the flexibility to work from there if I feel
Yes.
like it, and I'm
Yes.
able to make the money to pay for it,
Yeah.
like that is not something that I think I would have ever been able to dream about at a 9 to 5, just
Yeah.
like at the level that I was at.
Yes.
So it just allows you to dream bigger, I think.
Hopping deeper into One Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
it's, your passion, you love to travel as we've been talking about. How did the connection come to be between travel, One Wonderful Life? How did that come together?
Yeah. So I have always been a traveler. Like that is the one thing that just really lights me up, like brings me immense amounts of joy.
Yeah.
And it's just where I feel most in my element, which is so weird because like you would think that that would be at home. And I love my house. I love my family. I
Right.
love where I live, but I am most in my element when I am like out in the world, which is so
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah.
but I love it. So I wanted to share those stories with other people and show them that they can. I think one of the things that makes me a little bit different in terms of the way I travel is that I love staying at luxury hotels. Like that is my jam. I am
Yeah.
obsessed with boutique hotels, like hotels with stories. Like I just love them. I love everything about them. But I also like I don't want to go and like do like a group boat tour with 50 people that brings me snorkeling. Like I want to go meet people
Okay.
that live there. Like
Okay.
I want to go to like the local market and eat fruits that I've never seen
Immerse
before. And
yourself.
like exactly, like I want to immerse myself in the culture, but in a way that's comfortable.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people think it's one or the other. Like I think a lot of people are like, oh, if I want to go see like a local place, I need to go like stay in a hostel and
Yeah.
rough it and do like I was a hostel goer for a long time until I met
Yeah.
my husband. And he was like, Sarah, I'll travel with you, but like I am not gonna stay in the places that you stay. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, I can't really afford anything else at this point in my life. But now that we can like afford to travel a little bit better than we did
Yeah.
before, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna stay in a 5-star hotel, but I'm gonna go to like the barrio down the street like later today and like talk to people. So like I travel in like a very different way. So I was like, I want to share that with people. But like the only reason I'm able to travel as much as I travel now and travel the way that I travel now is because I started this online business and I'm making more money than I did in corporate. And I don't have to ask a boss if I can go on vacation,
Yeah.
So that was sort of where the coaching and travel sort of like came together
Yeah.
because as I started writing blogs and stuff, I was like, well, I don't want every vacation to feel like it needs to be travel blog worthy.
Right.
And I am not the type of person who's going to put makeup on and leave my hotel room at 4 a.m. to go take pictures at a
Right.
historic site that's going to be like bustling by 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Like that travel influencer life was just not for me because
Yeah.
I am very
Yeah.
much like, I want to be in it. And like immersive travel, like I want to be in it. I want to be
Yep.
talking to people. I want to be enjoying. I want to be like learning stories and like I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just not super conducive to like having to capture every moment and like
Right.
be thinking about
Right.
content every day. So
Yeah.
like I did a couple trips like that and I was like, you know what? I don't like this.
Yeah.
And this it goes back to the thing that like I'm not willing to stick with something that I don't completely wholeheartedly love.
Yeah.
And some people might call that being a quitter. And like, I'm happy to be a quitter if that's the case, you know? Like, so while I still have the travel like as the foundation of my brand and why I'm doing what I'm doing, I very much want to show other people how they can create this kind of life
Yeah.
for themselves. So it's a mix of telling the travel stories that really light me up and that I'm so grateful to have as
Yeah.
a part of my life and like to get those experiences. But
Yeah.
it's also teaching other people how they can build online businesses so that they can create that type of freedom as well.
I love it.
So that's sort of like the two pieces of the business and how they came together. And, you know, it started as a travel blog, but the beauty of entrepreneurship is that you don't have to keep your business in like this little bubble or box
Yeah.
because that's what you started it as, you know, like you can morph it into be whatever you want it to be. And like, is the picture still a little muddy? Maybe, but
Yeah.
I still have clients. I'm still writing about things that I like.
Yep.
And I don't know. I love that. And that's what I love about online business is you can like
I love that.
really focus on what lights you up and
Yeah.
how you can help other people. And that's sort of like what I want to do with One
Yeah.
Wonderful Life is those two things, like
I love
share
that.
the things that light me up and help
Yeah.
other people create a life that's similar if that's something that they want.
I love that. I've had a YouTube channel for almost 6 years now, and
Oh
I
wow.
started like whenever we travel, because we've always been a traveling family. We've always,
I love it.
just traveled around the United States. We've done
That's awesome.
overseas, and as I've got older, as we've traveled, I've stopped carrying my camera around and talking to my camera as we've been walking
Yep.
around. More, I'm turning it around, capturing the things, because that's the stuff that I honestly go back and watch more. You know what I mean?
Same.
Like, you're not going back and watching yourself. So in the
100%.
same sense, I'm like, people don't want to hear me talk.
Yeah. And like
What's going
I
on?
yeah, I think that there's like definitely that's useful. But
Yeah,
like when I was in it, I was like, I feel like I'm missing out on what I'm seeing
yeah,
here, and I don't like that. So, like, we were the first trip that I took as like a travel blogger was going to Morocco, and luckily we didn't have service all week, so it's sort of like I was like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be a travel blogger, but I'm not posting anything because I
yeah.
can't get a video to load to save my life.
Right.
And it was a blessing in disguise because I think it showed
Yeah,
me that like it doesn't have to be in the moment. So like a lot of the travel stuff that I share now on the One Wonderful Life
yeah.
account is stuff that I've experienced in the past. Like, you know, I got back from where was I? I don't even remember where I was. I went to Mexico a couple weeks ago. And I like shared actually I still have to share that. So Guatemala, I went in February. And the
Okay.
week after was actually like when I shared the stuff for Guatemala.
Yeah,
So, but I'm gonna do that with Mexico too. So like I just got back from Mexico. So now I'm gonna share the stuff that I did in Mexico like
yeah,
after the fact. And I think it allows you to sort of like process what you experienced and
yeah,
like tell the best stories and share the best things. And I think that, you know, there's still that travel element to the account. Like, but
yeah,
I think there's so many parallels between travel and entrepreneurship that
yeah.
I think that that's sort of like fun to share too.
I resonate with that. I just got back from, I think it was end of February myself, and we finally had a girls trip, and it was for the purpose that I was running a race, but we went to
Oh, fun.
Disney and we
Oh,
did
I
this
love it.
3 day, 5 day Disney trip, but it was so nice because I was
Fun.
the same way. I just now this past weekend got the vlog up, but it's
Yep.
one of those where I was like, I like
You want to be in the moment.
I want to be in the moment. I was in like race mode. I was not in sharing content immediately. It
Yeah.
was nice to kind of just have that time with my friends, and like we were talking about, be in that moment that you just,
Yeah.
it's not even in your head.
I love it. Yeah. Two of my clients are actually like Disney, like
Adults.
the ultimate Disney adults. And they think they're going next month to run one of them's running a bunch of races, the other is
Yeah.
just like there to cheer her on. But
Yeah.
they talk about it all the time, and they were actually doing virtual Disney races too for a
Yes.
while.
Yeah.
So
You.
when I was there coaching, they're my only in-person coaching clients, which is fun. So
Okay.
I like go to their house on Wednesday nights and we have dinner and like talk
Yeah.
business and
Yes.
helping them build copywriting businesses. But she got a package and it was all of her like Disney race medals.
That's
And I
so
was like, this is
cool.
so cool. I
Yeah.
love it. But it
Yes.
seems like fun race.
Yes. I have mine sitting here in my office, and
I love it.
it's one of my cooler medals that moves. It has Moana on it.
Yeah. Oh, I
Why
love
not be a kid? You know what I mean? Like it just
it.
is
I
the
love
best place to feel like a kid. Uh,
it. So
when
fun.
you are creating an itinerary for your trip, we talked about it a
Yeah.
little bit. What is the go-to that you are definitely adding to that itinerary?
A food tour, hands down.
Okay, okay.
So I am very much a foodie, and so is my husband, and pretty much all of my friends. Like there was a trending reel at one point that was like, if you don't like food, you can't be my friend. And I was like, this is me. So that is typically like my first thing that I search in a place after I've like I won't like go to a place like because I've seen a food tour. I'm like, I'm gonna go to this country because I want to do this food tour. But and I do that with hotels. Like the trip that I went on to Guatemala in February, like Guatemala was not really on my radar before, but I love Latin America. I lived in Ecuador for a little while and Latin America just feels like home to me. So I'm like, I'll go anywhere in Latin America. I don't care. But I have a slight obsession with the small luxury hotels of the world collection. It's not like a brand, but it's like all of these like boutique properties that just have really cool stories. So I just looked in Latin America, like what there was, because I was like, I have time. Me and my friend wanted to do a remote work trip that ended up just being a vacation because we were like, there's too many fun things to do in Guatemala. We don't want to work. So, but I did choose that destination because there was a hotel that I wanted to stay at. So I guess it sort of like depends on the trip. But for me, it's always a food tour, a really cool hotel, and supporting some sort of women-owned business of some kind, whether it's a tour company or like an artisan collective or something like that. I'm just saying Guatemala because it was recent,
Yeah.
but I found a company called Heart of Travel. It's owned by an American woman who lives in Guatemala with her family, and she does an incredible job at connecting you with local people. So I went to her and I was like, I want to do a couple excursions. Like I know that you do week-long trips, but like, can you just set up a food tour or can you set up like some sort of cultural activity? And she sent over like an entire week of stuff. And I was like, okay, I want to do all of this. So like we did such cool things. We did a coffee tour where we had lunch at a local farmer's house and he took us in the back of his pickup truck to his coffee farm that was like on the edge of a volcano, like, and we did a jade workshop where we were able to make our own like jade pieces, necklaces to take home with us. We what else did we do? We did like day tours where we like went to or talked about the coffee plantation, but like chocolate factories and like stuff that were owned by local women. And this is actually from there. It's we went to it's like a collective of artisan weavers, and they make all of these different things. And like this I got, and they tell you like who made it, how long it took them to make it. So Johanna made this, and like it's just like stuff that connects you with local people and supports local communities because I think travel can really be used for good in that way. So yeah, local experiences, hotels, and food tours.
I love that. You had me at food tour.
Yeah.
I am a food person. We are a food family. So
Yeah.
my dad's sister and I travel. Like when we travel, it's you'll basically find the three of us together. And
Yeah.
so food is always top of
Same.
list. It's my dad and I were just actually talking about it. It's a reason why we love Seattle, just
Oh,
because.
I've never been to Seattle. My cousin lives there, and I keep saying that I need to visit.
Yeah, so we're him and I both work for the same company, and so we that's where they're headquartered out of. So when we have to go out there, we're like, okay, I don't really want to work. I just want to walk
I
around
know.
and eat at all of my favorite spots and go down to
Exactly.
the
It's
market.
so true.
It's
So
just
if you ever go to Mexico City, my favorite food
okay.
tour is Eat Like a Local MX, I think is the
Okay.
website.
Okay.
But it's again, it's women owned and she hires all women. And we went to the markets, we like
Yeah.
walked on the streets and just like street food, which I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
And all like she's sort of adopted some local girls from a
Okay.
family who have a stall in the market.
Yeah.
And so they taught us how to make micheladas, which are like it's a Mexican drink. I don't know if you know what
Yeah.
it is, but it's a mix of like beer, Worcestershire sauce, hot
Yes.
sauce, and then tagine on the rim. And they were like the best micheladas I've ever had in my life. But the family that works in that stall, she like goes and teaches them English after like they close the stall for the day. She's helped them uh like lead tours to help make money for a quinceanera trip. So she was able to help them like go to Europe. This is the first person in her family to ever have a passport. So like she's really supporting the local community and you get to meet those people and do those things and eat like the best food that I've ever had in my life. And a lot of friends that went on that trip with me, they were like, we don't know if we want to do a food tour. And I was like, all right, well, I'll go by myself. Like, I don't care, but they all ended up going and they were all like, this is the best thing we've ever done in our lives. So thank you for convincing us to do it. So eat
Yeah.
like a local in Mexico City is the best food tour I've ever been on.
I love that. How could you, I mean, how could you turn down a food tour? That's
Right.
seems
Favorite
crazy
activity.
to me.
I know I've thought about starting them around where I live because where I live is very much like a foodie restaurant kind of place. But I'm
Absolutely.
like, I don't know. I feel like it would be a little bit too much in terms of like trying to get into places in the summer here is
Yeah.
really hard.
Good luck.
So
Yeah.
the logistics would probably be complicated,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
lots of good
Y'all
places.
got some fresh food though, I'll tell
We
you.
do. We do.
Fresh. Fresh.
A lot
Uh,
of good seafood.
yes. I consider myself pretty lucky. Like I'm 2 hours away from the coast of North Carolina. I grew
Okay.
up
Yeah.
eating seafood, so like
Yeah. I'm
it,
going to Corolla this summer. I haven't been there. We used to go to Cape Hatteras every year when I was a kid,
okay.
but this summer we're going to Corolla with my husband's side of the family.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
we
very
go,
exciting.
we're Outer Banks people. We are
Okay. Love
Nags
it.
Head, and that
Okay.
is actually where I did my 3 months living in during the summertime and
Oh,
working remotely
fun.
was the
Yeah.
Outer Banks. So
Oh
it's
God, I love that.
away from home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
The discussion right now, work to live, live to
Yeah.
work. It's never been more prominent than I think it has been right now. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think it's funny because the heavy discussion I have is with people like my dad who are in that older generation who are kind of looking at us going, my God,
What
you
are
can
you doing?
retire right now and it'd be better off than I ever was.
Yeah.
What are some of your tips from an entrepreneur perspective? 3 tips for becoming a freelancer, contractor, working for yourself.
I think the first thing is just to start before you're ready. Like even if you have no idea what you want to do or um like no idea how you can leverage your skills, like you do have skills that you can leverage in some way, shape, or form. Like I was an event planner, but I became a copywriter, like because some facet of my job was copywriting to a certain extent and marketing. So I had like basic foundational knowledge of that. Like if I had thought about it logically, I probably would have been like, oh, let me just go start an event planning business because I'm super good at this. Um, but I was like, I want to work remote. I want to not have to go into an office. I want to be able to take my work anywhere. So, like, think about what you really like, think about the skills that you have, and turn that into a business idea. That's a super simplified version of it, but essentially start before you're ready and you can figure it out. If it's something that, and you could also start it as a side hustle too. So I had that one freelance copywriting client as a side hustle for probably like 5 years before I left my job because it was just like something fun on the side. So you could always experiment with that if you're like not totally ready to jump ship. Or actually, I have one person I talked to yesterday like really loves their 9 to 5, and people love their 9 to 5s. Like I'm jealous of people that love their 9 to 5s. So like if you just want to like build wealth or do something creative or a side hustle is also a really great way to start exploring entrepreneurship. I think another one is when you do start, don't undervalue yourself or underestimate what you're worth. I charged literally pennies in the beginning, and I look back and I'm like, I could have hit six figures like so much
Yeah.
faster if
Yeah.
I had just like charged what I was actually worth. And I like look at it now and I cringe. And like my clients, they're like, oh, I can charge that. And I'm like, yes, please, please don't charge what I charge because it took me so much longer to get to the rates that I want
Yep.
now because because a lot of my clients are return clients. Like a lot of them are people that I've worked with for like going on 2 years now at this
Right.
point. So I've had to like raise those rates to meet that. And it's always an uncomfortable conversation because I charged too little at the beginning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is something like there's a tool for copywriters. It's called Copy Hackers and they have a rate calculator. So you
Yeah.
go in and you put like what type of copy you're writing, what type of experience you have, what type of education you have,
Yeah.
and it will tell you what you should be charging for a project.
Okay.
And when I'm working with new clients that are like putting together packages, I'm like, go here, play with this, just see what you could
Yeah.
charge. And they come back and they're like, oh my God, like I can charge so much for this. And I was going to charge like a quarter or a third of that. And I'm like, okay, so go back to the calculator, see what you should be charging, compare your rates with other people that are doing similar things online to make sure that you're still competitive and go off of that. Like, because I think a lot of people starting out, there's a lot of imposter syndrome, there's a lot of self doubt, there's a lot of like, who am I to be doing this?
Yeah.
Um, and that translates into charging too little.
Yeah.
So I think just being really cognizant of that in the beginning will help you grow more in entrepreneurship in general.
Yep.
And then a third thing would be, I think just investing in some sort of community or mentorship that can really help you grow. Because for me, I didn't do that for 2 years and I just like flailed by myself and like had so much anxiety and doubt and like, I don't know how to do this. And Google is great, but it's not going to like brainstorm with you. It's not going to like help you
Yeah.
come up with ideas and it's not going to like be supportive when you're having a really bad day because entrepreneurship is hard.
Yeah.
So I think, find friends that will support you, find a coach, find a mentor, find a colleague that you've worked with in the past that is trying
Right.
to do something similar. Like, I think for me, that's been the biggest thing is because leaving a 9 to 5, like it completely changes. Like you don't realize how much your social like conversations and
Socializing.
like
Yeah.
going out and all of these things and talking to friends and like commiserating and complaining and
Yeah.
being miserable at your 9 to 5, like so much becomes like it becomes who you are. And you realize when you leave that and you're like, oh shoot, like I don't have anything to talk about anymore because I'm not experiencing that. So like putting yourself in rooms with people that are experiencing it and have been where you are and can
Yeah.
help you like get out of that. And I think it also helps you dream bigger. Like when I started, I just wanted to make more money than I made at my 9 to 5. Like that was my only goal.
Yeah.
But now that I've like hired a coach and I'm in a mastermind with like a bunch of other really
Yeah.
incredible women entrepreneurs, like
Yeah.
these women are making like 30, $50,000 a month, not a year, like a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shoot, like there is so much more opportunity and it just
Yeah.
I didn't really think of that for myself until I started investing in like becoming parts of those communities. So I think that like finding what works for you in that way, so like a group or a person that's going to support you, be there for you, like finding somebody that you can do accountability calls with every week. Something like that to sort of create your support system because you don't have a team. Like you
Yeah.
don't have somebody that you can pass stuff off to or like
Right.
brainstorming is the hardest thing for me. Like this is the one thing like as a copywriter, I really love AI because it's now like my brainstorming partner. So
Yeah.
like that's been really helpful. But it's entrepreneurship can be lonely. So I think supporting yourself with a community of like-minded people that are going through the same stuff as you are is huge because you by default have that in a 9 to 5 in your colleagues and your coworkers and honestly like the good majority of people in your life probably. But entrepreneurship, you don't have that. So I think
Yeah.
going and finding it is key.
I going back to your second tip that you were just discussing, it's it's so prevalent in today's society too that people are like, oh, when you're just starting out, you have to like you're gonna have to do some free work or trade or something like that. But I truly believe you don't have to. I don't think you have to at all because I think it, like you were talking about, it diminishes what your experience, your worth, and your passion for what you're doing.
100%. I think that a lot of people like when I first started copywriting, because I had no experience being an official copywriter, I was like, oh, I can't charge as much as other
Right.
people.
Right.
But the niche that I was in and the niche that I started in was events. So realistically, I had more experience and more knowledge and more expertise in events than some of the people that I was writing for. And some of like the writers that they would have hired if they weren't me, they might have known how to write. They didn't know anything about the industry. And what they wrote was probably just total lies or things that they pulled off the internet and just reworded.
Yeah,
Like that's
absolutely.
the nature of research and like writing about things you don't know.
Absolutely.
So I didn't think about it in that way. I was like, oh, well, I don't know how to write, so I can't charge that much. But
Yeah.
realistically, I had so much knowledge and like firsthand knowledge that I could have been leveraging to have people pay premiums for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've learned that now,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I didn't think about the knowledge and the expertise and the worth that I had. I just thought about what I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I think shifting that narrative in your head and that mindset is really huge.
Even today where I work, I work in social media, and
Mhm.
if people are like, "Oh, you've only done 3 years in corporate America." I have 3 years of
Feels like
contract
a lot.
and freelancing beforehand
Yeah,
before I even got to corporate America. I said, so that makes it 6 years. I said that 3 years that I've been here shouldn't define or delete the other 3 years that I
absolutely
spent
not.
working with local businesses, restaurants to do social media for, you know what I mean? Like
I think that's more valuable in a lot of ways because
right?
you're working with so many different clients and so many different demographics and like you're learning so much about how that operates in different
Yeah.
worlds. And that was one of the things that I think made my experience sort of unique coming into copywriting and being
Yep.
a coach and, being a travel blogger and all of
Yes.
these things is that like I had tried a ton of stuff. Like
Yeah.
I knew what I liked, I knew what I didn't like.
Yeah.
I knew how nonprofits worked. I knew how corporate America worked because I had a nonprofit job. I had a
Yeah.
global corporate job. Like
Yeah.
I experienced the big companies and the small companies and the
Yeah.
internships and all of these things that I think lent experience and expertise in like what I could do with that from the future.
Absolutely.
And rather than people seeing you as a job hopper who's not an expert in this industry, like think about all of the foundational skills that you've learned and built in all of these different experiences. And I think that that's more important.
Absolutely. And I feel like you always carry things. You always
100%.
carry things. Uh,
Hmm.
so it's nothing that's ever left behind or disregarded. And
Now, like with my like just building websites, I think it was like 2013. I had a marketing job where I built one WordPress website and I had not touched WordPress since. And now that's what all of my websites are built on. That's what I teach my clients to build their websites on. That's what's best for SEO. Like all of these things that then helped my learning curve with trying to figure out how to start my own business because I had that basic foundational WordPress knowledge that I had gained from a previous, job back in the day. But it had been
absolutely.
literally years. But it comes back. It's like riding a bike, you
Yes,
know?
it does. Absolutely. Absolutely. And things today are updated to, so it's maybe a little easier to use. Hopefully.
Exactly. Oh God, it's so much easier. Which is also a benefit.
Yes, yes. It's always a thumbs up when building a website is just a tad bit easier than it was a few years ago.
Yep. I don't want to pull my hair out anymore, so that's cool.
No, no, I don't either. I don't either. And yeah, it makes things just a tad bit more livable to
Exactly.
yeah,
Enjoyable even, maybe
yes,
some
yes,
days.
yeah. My last question for you, Sarah, is just what inspires you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that it's like all the stories of all the people that I've come across in my life. Like, I think I get the most inspiration. And I think the reason that I like traveling so much is that I am very much inspired by other people's lived experiences. And, I think the most incredible people that I've met in the world are the people that have the least. So I think like it brings me back to my roots and the foundation and what's important in life and like the simple things. And I think that that's really important to remember. And it's also what I draw a lot of my inspiration from. I think it's just like people's stories. I don't know.
It's it's why I'm here today doing this. This is
That's true. Yeah. No, that's such a good point.
yeah, this is I think storytelling is one of the most beautiful things that
I
comes
think so
in
too.
every person's life.
I
Uh,
wholeheartedly agree with that.
yeah, I was just talking to somebody the other day about it. I was like, everybody has a story. Whether or
Hmm.
not they think it's great or not, whether or not they think it's worth sharing or not, everybody has a story and it's
So
important
true.
in some sort of way somebody finds an outlet to tell their story, whether it's a podcast, YouTube,
Yeah,
whatever, writing it. I think it's important for every single person.
I totally agree. And I love what you're doing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I love what you're doing
Thank you.
because you've got the love for my love for travel.
Yeah.
So I've loved getting to read all of your content, and
Thank you.
um, I I need to go do a food tour now because now I'm hungry. I
Yeah.
need to go
I'll
travel.
send you the link for the one in Mexico City. I
Yes,
need to plan a
yes.
trip to Mexico City next.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And like I said, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and talking with me
Yeah.
today. If you
Thank
guys
you.
do not follow Sarah, her socials will be linked down below. So please go check out One Wonderful Life. Um, and cannot wait to see what where you travel to this year.
Thank you. I know I don't have a trip booked right now because I just did 3 in 3 months. So my
Yeah.
husband's like, can we stay home for a couple months? And I'm like, that's fine. So later in the year, I'm thinking either Cuba or Spain. We'll see. We'll see.
Oh, I love that. That sounds fun.
I
Um,
love it.
but thank you, thank you. And as
Thank
always, I
you.
will see you guys back here next time. Bye,
All
y'all.
right.